Here we have a drawing for a very large tract. You get these plats in and they're huge, and you don't want to draw something inch to 200 or inch to 300, so you're going to take a portion of it that fits with the plans the man's done, and he's going to build his house in one corner of it. And so we've got a 47-acre tract. We've got a property line that's 748 feet long. We're not going to do that. The man's going to build in one little corner. So the man comes up and he says, I'm going to build my house 140 feet back. And so we say, okay, it's 140 feet back off his property line. But let's suppose you're not really sure where the property line was. You only knew that this pin was right here in the field and this pin was right here. And this distance between these two pins is 140 feet. So we're going to show 140 feet between these two pins. And we know that his house site is 140 feet back and some feet in. So we're going to show this at 140 feet. So it's 140 feet in. We're going to measure in from this little compass 140 feet, or we'll use one that's a little stiffer. So we come in 140 feet. And we just scribe a little arc right here. And I know from this one that his house is, let's put it in 145 feet. So we set our compass on 145. I'm always bad about getting the wrong ones in here, so you got to be careful when you do that. So where it intersects is where the rear corner of his house is going to be. So we're going to give him another 30 by 50 house. I know in Northern Virginia that's probably small, so bear with me, guys, up there. So we got our, you can see I didn't do a very straight line right there, so you can always use your eraser because you're going to erase this arc here anyway. That's 50. Get some more marks, smudge marks out of here. When you get good at this, you'll even be tempted to draw them with pen. You probably start over a few more times, but you'll get the hang of it. Alright, so we've got the rear corner of the house set. And the drain field was back here. We're going to say, because this is a made-up one, guys. I didn't do the measurements on this. It's not a real one like the other one was. So we're going to show this drain field back here. And once again, we've got measurements from the two pins. So we're going to say this one is 180 feet back right here. And you can do this with this. And let's say that it is... it's going to be 182 feet, 892 feet right there. Well, we get our little thing here and we measure out. It's about the limit of this thing, so we put our anchor on the paper and we scribe it that way. You would have pulled these two measurements and you would have known what it was, and so you can just do it that way, and that makes it a little easier. So now we know this is where our distribution box is going to be, right there. And if it's if you've done your other measurement, you can angle in the drain field, the angle on the drain field. We'll assume that you've done that. You can reproduce those two measurements once again. Let's say he's got 100-foot ditches, and we'll put that in right there. And so we now know, well, you would have known this in the field, that that was 280 and 230. And we've got 100-foot long trenches. And it didn't have the greatest soil, so he's going to have 5 of these on 10-foot centers. And we'll assume that it's a uniform slope across here. Obviously, if you don't have a uniform slope, it'll be keystone shaped or whatever. You put that in like so. And of course, if he had a 3-bedroom drain field, he's going to need a 50% reserve, which is going to be 1, 2, 3 trenches minimum on 5 100s. And we're going to label his little reserve area right here. We've got our distribution box. If you want to quibble about the distribution box being to scale, go ahead. Because he's got a rather flat slope, he had to move his drain field down quite a ways because he wanted to trough out his basement. I even like to show the basement trough roughly somewhere in here and label it as that, for the reason okay, so now we're going to put his septic tank down here because we don't want him unloading his firewood and driving across the trough of the basement there. And you can put this in somewhere in here. Okay, so now we've got a reserve area. Okay, now you can see that I flip things around. That's usually not a good idea. You got to turn things back and forth, but you'll get good at it. And you watch my mistakes. Once again, I label the property line. The beauty of this is when you scale it in, you know you haven't crossed that property line, even though that property line wasn't marked. You had these 2 pins. If you knew these 2 pins were the ones, you didn't need to be actually able to see that property line, because you knew from the scale in here and where you're drawing it that you're not across the property line. That's one of the benefits of drawing things to scale. You probably bored a hole right at the distribution box, another one, and you probably scale in these holes. I'm not going to bother to do that. You know, you've got a drain, you got a hole anywhere in there. Some people insist on a 4th hole in the reserve area. It's all part of the drain field to me. And we've got a 3-bedroom. Once again, you guys in Northern Virginia are going to have those 5 and 6 bedroom homes. We've got the road up here. Okay. And so this is designed to do is show you from 2 known benchmarks that you know you can draw it to scale and you can keep it on the property when you have limited information and you can't figure that out. So I like scale drawings. They tend to keep us out of trouble, and I think they serve a great purpose. I hope you'll appreciate them as you start to use them and draw them up. Obviously, I've just whipped through this. It wasn't a real example, probably a poor example. Try to keep your writing all in one direction instead of back and forth like I did. But I was going through it pretty quickly. Thank you very much.